Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
I stepped off that bus like I was coming back from a different planet. The air in Dry Creek still smelled like sun-scorched pavement and dust, but the town felt smaller than I remembered. Not quieter, just emptier, like even the ghosts had moved on. My dad stood by his truck, arms folded, mouth tight like he was chewing on something bitter. No hug, no smile. Just a nod and, "You pack light?" I threw my duffel in the bed and climbed in. Silence thick enough to choke on. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't ask about Kansas or the deployment before that. He just drove, eyes fixed on the road like it might try to run. We pulled up to Grandpa's place, that old stubborn farmhouse at the edge of town, white paint peeling like it was shedding skin. I used to spend every summer there, back when life still felt simple. But now the house leaned like it was tired of waiting for something that never came. Inside, the air was heavy, not just old house stuffiness, something else, like the walls were holding secrets they didn't want me to hear. My dad muttered something about needing to get back to the office, then disappeared down the hall. And then I saw him. Grandpa came around the corner slower than I remembered, but with that same fire in his eyes. His arms wrapped around me like I hadn't vanished for 6 years. That hug. That was the only thing that felt real. The only thing that felt like home. Dinner was a mess of clinking forks and fake smiles. Dad made small talk about town zoning meetings. I nodded, pretending to care. But Grandpa, he wasn't pretending. He looked at me and said, "I always meant for you to have that house by the river." The room went still. Dad froze, fork midair. It hit his plate with a sharp clatter. He forced a smile. "We talked about that, remember? Years ago?" "No," I said. "We didn't." He wouldn't look at me, just kept eating like the conversation had never happened. But the shake in his hand gave him away. Later, I cornered him in the hallway. "You gave the house to her, didn't you?" Nothing. Just that same dead stare, like I didn't exist. My sister, Samantha, the addict, the screw-up, the one who never showed up unless she needed a bailout, she got the house Grandpa promised me, and suddenly it all snapped into place. The silence, the fake welcome, the way no one looked me in the eye. I wasn't the returning son. I was the outsider now. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't sleep that night. The bed creaked like it remembered better days. The walls popped with every breeze, like they were whispering things no one else wanted to say out loud. Every sound made me sit up, half expecting someone to walk in and finish the conversation my dad wouldn't start. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about Grandpa's face at dinner. That look in his eyes when he said the house was meant for me. Like he finally remembered something he'd been carrying for too long. By morning, I had talked myself down. Told myself it didn't matter anymore. Told myself I wasn't a kid who needed a damn inheritance to feel seen. Then, I found him. He was on the kitchen floor, one arm curled under him, the other stretched like he'd tried to grab something on the counter. His eyes were wide, like he saw something coming and couldn't stop it. His chest didn't move. His lips were cracked, open, frozen mid-breath. I dropped to my knees and shouted his name. He blinked, barely. His fingers twitched once, but no words came. Just the look in his eyes. Fear, yeah? But underneath that, regret. I called 911. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Fluorescent lights, cold tile floors, nurses moving fast but saying nothing. He had a pulse. Machines took over the job his body couldn't do anymore. Tubes, monitors, wires, all of it buzzing like some terrible lullaby. But his voice was gone. Forever? Dad showed up that afternoon, didn't say a word to me. He came in holding a paper bag full of fruit and a couple of gas station sandwiches. Dropped it on the table like that made up for everything. "You could have called sooner," he muttered. "He was still breathing when I found him," I snapped. Dad didn't respond, just looked at Grandpa's body, then back at me like I was the one who broke him. He came by like that every day, quiet, hollow, leaving groceries, pretending it was helpful, never asking questions, never offering answers. A week in, I started sleeping in the hospital chair. I couldn't go back to that house, not alone, not with all those damn whispers. One night, I walked into Grandpa's room and something stopped me cold. A photo. It had been tucked inside a get-well card some church lady left. There it was, a picture of Samantha, standing in front of the house Grandpa said was mine, smiling like she'd earned it. A little welcome home sign dangled from the porch. I flipped the photo over. To Sam, Proud of you. Love, Dad. My name wasn't anywhere. I stood there staring at it until my fingers went numb. My stomach burned. Not from hunger, from rage. The next day, Dad dropped by again, same routine. I didn't wait. I held up the photo and said, "You lied. You gave her the house. You didn't even wait till he was gone." He blinked like he didn't know what I was talking about. She needed a place. We all did what we had to. I took a step forward. He said it was mine. Dad looked past me at the machines. You sure he knew what he was saying? That was it. No apology, no shame. Just that cold, familiar distance. The kind he wore like armor. He walked out before I could say anything else. Back in the room, I sat by Grandpa's bed and held his hand. His skin was dry, warm from the machines, but there was no pressure back, no squeeze. I leaned close and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" No answer, just that constant beeping, slow and steady. And I realized right then, whatever he meant to say, whatever promises he tried to keep, it was too damn late now. I didn't sleep again. The next morning, I left the hospital, drove straight to town hall, and walked in like I owned the damn place. My boots echoed through the narrow hallway lined with bulletin boards from 2 decades ago. At the clerk's desk sat a woman in her 60s, reading a crossword with a mechanical pencil. Her glasses were halfway down her nose. "I need property records," I said, dropping Grandpa's full name on the counter. She glanced at me, squinted. "You're Dale's boy?" I didn't answer. She tapped her pencil twice, sighed like I'd ruined her morning, and got up. "You're lucky we didn't toss him last year," she muttered, disappearing into a back room. She came back 10 minutes later with a thick yellow folder, edges curling, label peeling. I took it, sat at the side table, and opened it. There it was, the deed to Grandpa's house, signed over in 2016. Not by Grandpa, by my dad, acting as power of attorney. My blood went ice cold. Grandpa didn't sign a damn thing. My dad did. While I was still alive, still writing letters from a rehab hospital in Kansas with my arm in a sling and a steel rod in my leg. I hadn't even been deployed that year. I'd been fighting my way through physical therapy, writing Grandpa every week just to feel grounded. He never wrote back. Now I knew why. Dad made the call, not Grandpa, not the old man who said that house was mine since I was 16. I took photos of every page, every signature. I thanked the clerk. She said nothing, just gave me a look I didn't know how to read. By afternoon, I tracked Samantha down. She lived in a cramped one-bedroom above the old bakery downtown. I parked across the street and walked up the rusted stairs, knocked hard enough to wake the dead. She opened the door slow, like she already knew who was on the other side. She looked like hell, pale, jittery, bags under her eyes. Skin pulled tight over a skeleton that used to be my little sister. "Hey," she whispered, stepping back. "You look healthy." "Cut the crap," I said, pushing inside. The place smelled like stale cigarettes and reheated soup, clothes everywhere, a mattress on the floor. No photos, no furniture that wasn't busted. I pulled out my phone and showed her the deed. "You sold it," I said. "Why?" She looked down at her chipped nails, picked at the skin on her thumb. "I needed the money." "For what?" "Rehab," she said flatly. "Twice." I stared at her. "That house was promised to me." Her voice rose. "Yeah, well, you disappeared. What did you expect? You stayed away for years." I stepped closer. "I was in Kansas, Sam, recovering. I wrote letters." She shrugged. "None ever came here." "Because he never got them," I shouted. "Dad signed the papers, not Grandpa. Did you even ask where the house came from? Or did you just cash in?" She looked at me, really looked, like she saw a ghost. "I was sick," she said quietly. "You wouldn't understand." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "I watched guys die 6 feet from me. I had to learn to walk again. Don't talk to me about pain." She sat on the mattress, arms wrapped around her knees. "I thought you'd moved on, that you didn't want anything to do with us." "You all decided that for me," I said. "You didn't even give me a chance." We sat in silence for a second. I looked around at the apartment. She looked like a shell, regret wrapped in skin, but not enough regret to undo what she'd done. I stood up, headed for the door. She said, "He promised it to me too, you know." I paused. "Number he didn't." She didn't argue. Out in the hallway, the air hit me like a punch, thick and hot and ugly. I didn't know who I was madder at, her, Dad, or Grandpa for letting it all happen. But one thing was clear. I wasn't just forgotten. They wrote me out like I never mattered. That night, I walked straight into Dad's study without knocking. He was there, same as always, in his worn leather chair, glass of scotch in hand, lamp casting a soft yellow light over paperwork he probably didn't read. He didn't look up. I dropped the deed on his desk. The one with his signature, the one that gave away the only damn thing I was ever promised. He glanced down, then back to his drink. "That was years ago," he said, like that excused it. "Your grandfather signed off back then." "No," I snapped. "You did. Power of attorney. His name's not even on it." He finally looked at me, calm, cold. He said it was fine. I took a step forward. "Bullshit. He didn't even know." "He was confused by then," Dad said, like he was talking about someone else's problem. "You weren't around. You didn't see what it was like. Managing the bills, the house, Sam spiraling every other month. Somebody had to do something." "So you stole it," I said. He stood now, slow and deliberate. "Don't come in here and throw words like that around. You weren't here. You don't get to judge." "You didn't even call me," I said, my voice cracking, but I kept my eyes locked on his. "You just made choices, for everyone, like I didn't matter." He ran a hand through his hair, turned toward the window. "It wasn't personal. You handed her the house and left me out of everything. Don't lie to my face and say it wasn't personal." He turned back around, glass still in hand. "What do you want from me? Regret? Fine. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe I should have asked. But we were drowning here. Your sister, your grandfather, everything was falling apart. And you made sure I stayed gone," I said. "You built your perfect little disaster without me." He didn't answer, just downed the last of his drink and sat back down like the conversation was over. I left before I did something I'd regret. The hospital was quiet when I got there, just the low beep of machines and the smell of plastic and disinfectant. I sat beside Grandpa, pulled out the deed, and laid it on the edge of his bed. His eyes found mine, slow but focused. I held it up. "Did you know?" Nothing. But then, one tear slid down his cheek, just one. No sound, no movement, just that. And I broke. I held his hand hard, like I could pull him back through sheer will. "I would have come home," I whispered. "I would have taken care of this place. You didn't have to give it away." His fingers twitched, barely. I left before the sob in my throat got any louder. Back at the house, I went straight for the study. I yanked drawers open, flipped through folders. I wanted more. More proof, more lies, more reasons. I didn't even know what I was looking for until I found it. Another stack of papers. Tax stuff, insurance, old letters. But things didn't line up. Names didn't match. Dates were off. There were gaps. Months where nothing existed, like pieces of history were just wiped clean. Then I found a scrap of notepaper, tucked between two folders. Handwritten, but not in Grandpa's script. 5 words, sharp and crooked. "You shouldn't have come back." I stood there staring at that note. 5 little words scratched like a warning. Not from Grandpa. His handwriting was neat, tight. This was rushed, ugly, like someone was in a panic. "You shouldn't have come back. Too late for that." I texted Brandon, an old army buddy stationed with me in Kandahar, the kind of guy who remembered everything. I just asked, "Did Grandpa ever mention anything about legal stuff?" He called 2 minutes later. "Yeah," he said. "I remember him talking about a lawyer. Something Holt, Davis and Holt, I think. Said he was updating something before the holidays. Why?" "I think my dad buried a will." "Then go dig it up." I was already grabbing my keys. The law office was in a small brick building downtown, 2 blocks from the church, 3 from the diner. Names still etched on the glass. Davis and Holt, attorneys at law. Looked like it hadn't been touched since the early 90s. A tall, narrow man with white hair and tired eyes greeted me in the lobby. "You must be Dale's son," he said. "I'm Richard Holt." I didn't bother with small talk. "I need to see my grandfather's will." He didn't flinch, just nodded toward his office. There were 2. That stopped me cold. He sat behind a cluttered desk, pulled out a drawer, and laid 2 files on the table. The first one, dated August 2016, leaves the house to your sister. Your father brought him in. I wasn't part of that signing. I opened the folder. There it was, Samantha's name, the house, all of it. Holt tapped the second file. "This one's from 2 years later, July 2018. Your grandfather came in alone. asked for the will to be updated, named you sole heir of the property, said he wanted to tell you himself. I flipped it open. My name, in print. My name, in ink. But it was never filed, Holt said quietly. He wanted to keep the news personal, said you'd had a rough deployment, wanted to do it face to face. Did my dad know about this version? He shouldn't have, Holt said. But I wouldn't be surprised. I stared down at my name, fists clenched. There's more, Holt added. He recorded a video, said it might help clear things up if anything ever happened. No one's ever seen it. You want to? I nodded, couldn't even speak. He turned his monitor, clicked a few times, and hit play. There he was, Grandpa, sitting upright, eyes sharp, voice steady. If you're watching this, something went wrong. This house belongs to my grandson. He earned it. I don't care what Dale says. This is mine to give. I felt the weight of every breath I'd ever held in my chest. It wasn't just words. It was proof. It was him. When the screen went dark, I said, "Can I get a copy?" Holt nodded. Already on a flash drive. I thanked him, took the drive, and left. My hands were shaking, but my head was clearer than it had been in years. I didn't go home. I stopped by the Brew Stop, a little bar off Main where most of the town's gossip got traded. Bartender nodded at me. I ordered black coffee and sat at the corner table until I saw someone I recognized, Julia Deacon. Used to be in Samantha's grade, always had the best memory for other people's secrets. I waved her over. She sat with a nervous smile. "You're back," she said. "I need to ask you something." She hesitated. "Okay. Do you remember anything about Samantha and the house? Something about our dad making her a deal?" Julia's eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me. "She told me once, way back, that your dad promised her the place, said if she kept quiet about something, he'd make sure she'd get it." I thought it was just junkie talk. What was she covering for? She looked like she regretted sitting down. I don't know exactly, just that she said it'd blow up the family if it ever came out. That was it. This wasn't about confusion or paperwork or old age. It was a setup, deliberate, planned, covered, and now I had proof. I drove straight from the bar to the courthouse the next morning. Didn't sleep, didn't eat. Just walked in with that flash drive in my pocket and a folder full of copies in my hand. The probate clerk looked like she expected me. Maybe word had already gotten around. "I'm here to file a petition," I said, "to contest a fraudulent transfer of property." She slid the form over without a word. I filled it out, attached everything. Both wills, notarized, time-stamped. Video file on the drive. I dropped it all into a manila envelope and handed it over. She stamped it. Accepted. Just like that. It was official now. The war was on. I headed back to the motel off Highway 19, a 2-story box with flickering hallway lights and beds that smelled like mildew. But it was cheap and no one asked questions. I tossed my keys on the nightstand, locked the door, double-checked the flash drive in the drawer, then passed out cold for a few hours. When I woke up, the drawer was open. Not wide, just a little. But I hadn't left it that way. The flash drive was still there, but someone had moved it. There was a note, folded in half under the drive. Plain paper, black ink. I have a copy too. No name, no signature, no threat. Just a reminder. I checked the door. Still locked. Window untouched. Whoever it was knew what they were doing. I didn't panic. I powered up my laptop and opened a blank document. Then I wrote everything, not just the house. Everything. I put down names, dates, what I knew, what I could prove, what I suspected. I kept it tight, brutal, honest. Didn't leave room for sympathy. I wasn't looking for pity. I wanted attention, accountability, fire. When I finished, I posted it anonymously to a veteran forum I used to browse during my recovery. Nothing fancy, just dropped it with the title, "How My Family Tried to Erase Me While I Served." And then I waited. It blew up within 3 hours. First, it was comments from other vets, dozens of them. Some shared similar stories. Others just wanted to say they believed me. A few offered legal advice. One guy even offered to help pay for a lawyer, no questions asked. Then it spread. Screenshots started hitting Twitter. Someone shared it on Reddit. I watched the numbers climb from my laptop screen, heart pounding like I was back on night patrol. Then Samantha posted a status. Something passive-aggressive like, "It's funny how people come back only to stir up the past like they ever cared." Full of vague quotes and fake grace, like she was some victim of gossip. It backfired. Hard. Old classmates started dropping receipts, screenshots, comments from years ago where she bragged about getting the house, texts where she said dad promised it if she kept quiet. It wasn't a good look. Even her friends turned quiet. Brandon showed up later that night with burgers and 2 cold beers. No words at first, just silence and the sound of wrappers tearing open. Then he looked at me and said, "You did the right thing." I didn't answer. Instead, I refreshed the thread one more time. That's when the email came in. Subject line: "I know who you are. Let's talk." From a journalist I recognized, someone who covered military injustice cases. Clean reputation, no fluff, just facts. I showed Brandon. He raised an eyebrow. "You ready for that?" I nodded. I didn't come back to stay quiet. I called Davis the next morning. The reporter had already replied, asking for an interview, but I needed to lock the legal side down first. No more leaks, no more questions. Just truth, nailed to the wall. Davis met me at the courthouse, then brought me to a small conference room in the back of his firm. White walls, glass table, no distractions. He'd already pulled in the right people. 2 sharp-dressed attorneys with clipboards, a local councilwoman I vaguely remembered from high school fundraisers, and 3 journalists from different outlets, including the one who emailed me. All of them quiet, watching me like I was about to pull a pin. I didn't say much, just set the flash drive down and nodded. Davis plugged it into the laptop, opened the file, and hit play. The room went still. There was Grandpa, clear as day, not shaky, not confused. His voice was calm, deliberate, his face stern but steady, like he'd rehearsed every word. "If you're seeing this, something's gone wrong. I'm not confused. I'm not sick. I know exactly what I'm saying. The house by the river goes to my grandson, not Samantha, not Dale, me to him. I raised that boy every summer, and he never once let me down." A pause. Then his eyes narrowed. "If Dale tells you otherwise, he's lying." Silence. No one moved until the screen faded to black. One of the lawyers leaned back in her chair. "You said he made this in 2018? "Yep," I said. 2 years after the will giving it to my sister. Davis nodded. "We'll verify the timestamp, get it logged into court evidence, but this is strong." The councilwoman spoke up. "How do you want to release it?" I looked at the reporter. "No edits, no spin, just post it." And we did. That afternoon, the video dropped. Full file. Grandpa's voice clean and sharp. No music. No dramatic intro. Just truth. It spread faster than I expected. By evening, hashtags were trending. Number Air Not Ghost and Number Justice for Grandpa. People reposted it with side-by-side screenshots of Samantha's old posts and court documents. Comments blew up, full of anger, confusion, sympathy. Veterans backed me. Locals weighed in. Strangers called my dad a thief in all caps. Samantha's socials went dark by midnight. Instagram gone. Facebook wiped. Twitter locked. Dad didn't go dark. He called me at 2:30 in the morning, full of rage and bourbon. "You little bastard," he slurred. "You think you can humiliate me? You don't know what you're playing with? I'll bury you in paperwork. I'll make sure you never see a dime." I put him on speaker, held the phone near my laptop mic, and let him keep going. "You should have stayed gone," he barked. "I protected this family. I cleaned up everyone's messes, including yours." My hand stayed still. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just recorded. When he finally hung up, I saved the file and emailed it straight to Davis with the subject, "More proof." His reply came 5 minutes later. "This will help. Stay quiet. Let us work." I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about names, legacies, the people who rewrite stories and expect no one to challenge the edits. But now the story was out, and it wasn't going away. 2 days later, Dad called a press conference. It was classic him. Dress shirt, no tie. Controlled anger masked as calm. The whole thing was staged at the town hall. Podium in front of the seal. A couple of local reporters and his buddy from the zoning board standing behind him like backup singers. He started with a sigh. "There's been a lot of confusion, a lot of unfortunate drama surrounding my father's estate." He looked straight into the cameras. "My son has been misinformed. This was never malicious. My father was not well when he made that recording." Then he leaned in. "And frankly, it hurts to see someone you raised turn a family matter into a media spectacle. He tried to smear me without getting his hands dirty. Claimed I was manipulated, said I'd misunderstood the documents, blamed my military trauma, even hinted that Brandon, who'd served with me, was influencing me for some kind of personal gain. But the thing is, people had already seen Grandpa, heard him, believed him. The comments on the live stream lit up instantly. He's lying. Play the video again. This man stole from his own father. Someone dropped a side-by-side of the will dates in the chat. Another posted the audio of Dad's drunken voicemail. Hashtags took off again before he even stepped away from the mic. He'd set the fire himself, but the fallout still hit harder than I expected. Valor Seed, the nonprofit that had been helping fund my veterans' housing project, emailed me that night. The message was short. In light of current controversy, we're pausing support until further notice. I drove to their local office the next morning, wanted answers, walked in, past the front desk, straight into the hallway where we'd built the vision board together, sketches of Fort Haven, budget breakdowns, team photos. And there, right under the whiteboard, in the trash can, was Grandpa's picture, the same photo I gave them to honor him. I pulled it out, held it in my hands. Dust on the glass, coffee stain on the bottom right corner. That stung worse than anything. Not just losing funding. It was them erasing the man who gave me a reason to build something. Brandon found me sitting outside in my truck. He didn't say anything at first, just climbed into the passenger seat, opened his phone, and held it out. The video. Grandpa's voice again, calm and clear. This house is for my grandson. He never once let me down. It hit just as hard the second time. I nodded. Let's go wider. We leaked it again, this time to 3 mid-level blogs, 2 veteran forums, and a reporter from the Dry Creek Ledger who didn't blink when I told her my last name. She ran the headline that night. Power of attorney or power play. Local vet challenges, family takeover. This time, it stuck. People started showing up in the comments. Locals, teachers, old friends, even folks from church. A few shared stories about how Dad pressured them out of property sales, how he leaned on people when they were at their worst. Someone posted court records, showing how many times Samantha had been bailed out with family funds. Rehab stints, arrests, probation violations, all of it painted the picture, and it wasn't pretty. The backlash flipped almost overnight. Dad's law firm went silent, then their website crashed, then their Google listing was marked permanently closed. Clients backed out. Partners bailed. And just like that, the reputation he'd spent 30 years building started to crumble. Samantha tried to post a video of her crying in her car. The internet didn't care. They didn't want tears. They wanted truth. And now, they had it. The courtroom was full by the time I walked in. Every bench packed. Townspeople, reporters, old classmates, strangers who read the story online. Whispers floated as I passed, but I kept my eyes forward. Judge Keller didn't bother with small talk. She sat tall behind the bench, hair pinned back, glasses perched low on her nose, eyes sharp like she'd seen through people bigger than my dad before breakfast. Davis leaned in. We stick to facts. Let the video speak. The bailiff called it in. Case number, names, charges. Then it started. Davis stood, walked to the evidence table, and plugged in the flash drive. Your Honor, this is the final recorded statement of Henry Lewis, made under full cognitive capacity in July 2018. He hit play, and just like that, Grandpa filled the room. Every breath, every word, crystal clear. No stumbles, no confusion, just conviction. This house goes to my grandson. He's the only one who's earned it. If anyone says different, they're lying. No one moved, not even the judge. When it ended, Davis turned off the monitor. The silence stretched so long, I could hear someone's stomach growl in the second row. Then Dad stood. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Thinner, pale, suit hanging off him like it didn't belong. But his voice was still slick. My father was not well when that video was recorded. He had a history of confusion. My son, he wasn't around. He doesn't know what things were really like. Judge Keller cut in. He had a will naming his grandson. It was notarized. The timestamp lines up. Dad cleared his throat. That will was never filed. The original stood for years. Davis didn't move. I stood. I didn't ask permission. I didn't care. I looked straight at the judge. My dad thinks this is about paperwork. It's not. It's about character. About what our name used to mean in this town. Grandpa believed in promises, in doing the right thing even when no one's watching. I pointed at the screen. He said my name. You heard him. You saw him. And I was here while they buried it, while they erased me. Dad didn't say a word. Judge Keller leaned back, flipped through her notes, then looked up. This court recognizes the second will as valid. The estate, including the property in dispute, is awarded to the rightful heir, the grandson, as stated. She banged the gavel once. Clean. Final. I exhaled. Dad stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. He turned to me, red in the face. You ruined this family. I didn't blink. I saved it. Outside the courthouse, the cameras were already rolling. Reporters shoved mics toward me, shouting questions. Some I expected, some I didn't even understand. I didn't answer a single one. Just walked straight through the noise, hands in my pockets, eyes ahead. They'd gotten their story. I wasn't giving them anything else. 3 weeks later, Fort Haven opened its doors. No stage, no speeches, no fake smiling politicians. Just quiet work. Boots on concrete, beds being made, toolboxes clanking, doors creaking open to guys who'd been sleeping in trucks or halfway houses. People who needed a reset, not a photo op. The old community center had been gutted, rebuilt from the studs. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't polished. But it was solid. It was real. Inside the front hallway, I hung 2 things on the wall by the check-in desk. First was a framed photo of Grandpa, the same one they'd tossed in the trash. I cleaned it, patched the corner, and hung it right where sunlight hit in the afternoon. Next to it, I tacked up Samantha's final letter. She sent it 2 days after the ruling. Handwritten, smudged in places. No excuses, just a string of truths. I thought if I kept lying, maybe one day it'd feel like the truth. That line stuck with me. She wasn't forgiven, but I wasn't dragging her through the mud either. That wasn't what this place was for. The house they stole was gone. Torn apart by greed and silence and a father who never thought I'd fight back. But I built something better. Real. Lasting. Earned. A home for people like me. Left out, counted out, written off. The ones who didn't come back to parades or banners, just the sound of their own footsteps walking into nowhere. When the court clerk emailed me weeks later, I barely read the message. Dad's appeal had been withdrawn. No explanation, no fight left in him. I didn't reply, didn't celebrate. Just kept going. We built 10 rooms, then 12, then 20. A mural went up over the main door. Spray paint over reclaimed wood, jagged and bold. You don't inherit a legacy, you live it. That was the point. Not revenge, not redemption, just truth. Built brick by brick in broad daylight, where everyone could see.